The first time I saw him, he was on his hands and knees in the narrow strip of lawn separating his porch from the sidewalk. He wasn't gardening. He was holding a single, fallen maple leaf, turning it over and over, meticulously folding each lobe inward, then smoothing it flat again. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost reverent. I watched for a full minute, perhaps more, before I pulled my gaze away, a knot forming in my stomach that I couldn't quite explain. It was just an old man with a leaf, after all. But the precision, the utter focus, it felt less like a quirky habit and more like a private, profound ritual, a nascent form of the *** repetitive neighbor behavior *** that would soon consume my attention. I'd only moved to Elmwood Terrace 6 months prior. After years of city noise and demanding work, the quiet street had been a balm. Houses were well maintained, gardens were neat, and the air always smelled faintly of cut grass and blooming hydrangeas. It was the kind of place where days unfolded predictably, a comforting rhythm I desperately sought. My neighbors were mostly retirees or young families, friendly enough but largely content in their own routines. Mr. Silas, in the house directly across, kept to himself more than most, a silent fixture tending his impeccable garden. His presence was part of the background hum of the street, unremarkable, until the leaf. The leaf incident, as I mentally dubbed it, was quickly followed by another peculiar observation. I was retrieving my morning paper when I saw Mr. Silas on his front lawn again, but this time with a small spirit level. He was at his mailbox, nudging the post ever so slightly. A millimeter to the left, a long pause, then a millimeter to the right. He crouched, eye level with the small bubble, adjusting, checking, adjusting again. This went on for nearly an hour. He didn't seem to be repairing it, the post was sturdy. He was just aligning it. I watched, hidden behind my own curtains, until he finally walked away, leaving the level on the grass. An hour later, he was back, repeating the entire process. The next morning, as I walked to my own mailbox, I found it felt different. The post, which had always listed slightly to the right, now stood perfectly plumb. I ran my hand over the base, feeling for fresh earth, anything. Nothing. It just stood straighter. I dismissed it as my imagination, a trick of light, but the memory of Mr. Silas and his level gnawed at me. A few days later, the window glazing started. Mr. Silas was meticulously wiping the outside of his living room window. Not cleaning it with soap and water, but rather wiping it with a dry, soft cloth, in a pattern I quickly came to recognize. He would start at the top left corner, wipe precisely down, then across, creating a perfect square. He'd move to the next square, overlapping slightly, until the entire window was covered in these invisible, repeated motions. He'd pause, step back, examine his work with an intense, almost critical gaze, then start over. The next window, the same. He had large windows, and this ritual would consume most of his afternoon, sometimes extending into the early evening. I saw him do it with the same empty cloth, day after day. The glass was always spotless before he began. He wasn't cleaning, he was enacting a sequence. A private, invisible grid he was traversing, over and over. My sleep grew troubled. The quiet hum of the street, once a comfort, now felt like a prelude to Mr. Silas's next silent performance. I found myself drawn to my living room window, pulling back a corner of the blind, just to confirm he wasn't out there. But he often was. Not always with a leaf or a level or a cloth, but always doing something star. He'd sweep his porch steps with a broom, but only the top step, and only 3 precise strokes, then move on, only to return hours later for 3 more strokes. He'd prune a specific branch of his rose bush, but only a single, tiny bud, then stare at the snipped end for a long time before wandering off. My daily routine started to revolve around his star. I'd plan my errands around the times I knew he'd be absorbed in one of his rituals, just to avoid seeing it, just to avoid the chilling sense of patterned meaninglessness. But the avoidance only fed the obsession. The unanswered question of why he did these things, with such unwavering dedication, began to erode my sense of reality. My own house, my sanctuary, began to feel like a surveillance post. I'd catch myself readjusting objects on my coffee table, or smoothing out creases on my throw blanket, with a precision I'd never possessed before, almost as if mirroring some unconscious part of his meticulousness. The street, once a symbol of peace, now felt like a stage for an intricate, inexplicable play, and I was the captive audience. The silence of the neighborhood, the unspoken understanding among residents, it no longer felt like discretion, but a terrifying complicity in a spectacle that only I seemed to fully perceive. One Tuesday, I decided I couldn't endure the silent observation any longer. I needed to interact with him, to hear his voice, to see if he was just an old man lost in habit. I concocted a simple pretext, a misplaced package, delivered to the wrong house. I walked across the street, my heart thudding a rhythm against my ribs. Mr. Silas was indeed in his yard, standing perfectly still by his bird feeder, observing a squirrel. He turned slowly as I approached, his eyes, pale blue, meeting mine without surprise. "Good morning, Mr. Silas," I began, explaining my fabricated dilemma. He listened patiently, a slight smile playing on his lips, almost imperceptible. His hands were clasped in front of him. As I spoke, unconsciously, I found myself gently rubbing the tip of my left thumb with the pad of my index finger, a nervous habit I sometimes picked up. He nodded, politely said he hadn't seen any package, and offered a quiet good day. It was all perfectly normal, perfectly polite. A wave of relief washed over me, quickly followed by a strange, unsettling awareness. As I turned to leave, I glanced back. Mr. Silas was still by the bird feeder. But now, with the same meticulousness he applied to leaves and mailboxes, he was gently rubbing the tip of his left thumb with the pad of his index finger. Over and over. Slowly. Deliberately. The squirrel, long gone, didn't seem to matter. I walked back into my house, the polite exchange echoing in my ears, but it was the silent gesture that filled my vision. It wasn't a mimicry born of mockery. It was an integration, a quiet absorption into his own private order. His *** repetitive neighbor behavior *** wasn't just a series of isolated eccentricities, it was a living, breathing system, adapting, incorporating. My presence, my small, unconscious action, had simply become another detail to be filed, categorized, and iterated upon. The quiet of Elmwood Terrace settled back around me, but it no longer felt empty. It felt resonant. As if every minute adjustment, every deliberate fold, every repetitive wipe, was part of a language I was finally beginning to understand, a silent, pervasive language that had always been speaking, and now, it knew I was listening. What other silent narratives are being woven into the fabric of our everyday lives?